The definition and medical criteria for autism spectrum disorder has changed in recent years, and earlier this month we examined those changes. Tonight we're looking beyond that spectrum and diagnosis to the lives being lived by autistic adults in our province. Joining us now for more, in Moose Factory, Ontario via Skype, Katie Little. She is program coordinator for the Billy Bayou program. That's a day program for developmentally disabled youth and adults funded by the Moose Cree Educational Authority. And with us here in studio, Sue Wong, Liberal MPP for Scarborough-Agincourt, also a member of the Legislature's Select Committee on Developmental Services, which recently delivered its interim report. Laurie Monsebrotten, Toronto Star social justice reporter, who was part of the team on the paper's in-depth autism project, and Robert Belita, whose 32-year-old son is autistic. Robert made a submission as well to the Ontario Ombudsman as part of that office's investigation into problems in the supports for people with autism, and it's good to have you three around this table here, and to Katie in Moose Factory, we're happy to have you here via Skype as well. I want to start just by reading an excerpt, Sue, from actually your committee's report, and it goes like this. It says, reduced availability of supports has meant increasingly that people must be headed for a crisis or already in crisis to access services. Crisis is now a necessary prerequisite for service. Presenters described the developmental services system as dysfunctional, a travesty, and a violation of the rights of Ontario's most vulnerable citizens. That part of your Select Committee report. Let's just get some personal evidence of perhaps that report's, what am I trying to say here, of the excerpt from that report. And Robert, to that end, I want to go to you first. Could you give us some better understanding of the nature of care that you and your wife have provided for your 32-year-old son, Alexander, who has autism?
Certainly, Steve. My son is, as you mentioned, 32 years old, and he is severely autistic on the severe end of the ASD spectrum. He is severely impaired in terms of behavior and
can he speak?
He can. He has language, but very limited language. Self-help skills, psychological development, cognitive skills. He has significant impairments across the spectrum.
If you could sort of put, I'm not sure how to ask this, other than he's had sort of the equivalent of a what grade student of intellect, would you say?
He functions at the level of a 3 to 5 year old, and he's physically completely normal and has a normal life expectancy. Like most autistic adults and most classic autistic individuals, he is detached or dissociated from reality for most of his day.
Does he lose his temper much?
He does have moments of behavior incidents on a daily basis, some mild.
You call it behavior incidents, but I bet you don't call it that when you're in the middle of one.
No, they can be quite severe. He will stomp and scream and carry on for 5 to 10 to 15 minutes sometimes. And he weighs 278 pounds, so when he jumps on our floors, it's a major event. And so he does have that kind of severe behavior when he's upset or sometimes spontaneously. But at the same time, overall, he's generally quite cooperative and quite passive. And so he has a lot of paradoxes in his presentation of the disorder. And he has, for example, he can read simple books, he has basic language, but he doesn't have what's commonly called the representational symbolic language. So anything that's idiomatic or idiosyncratic or anything like that, or comprehension of what he's read or what is being said to him, he has no comprehension of that whatsoever.
Okay, let me go to Laurie then. I guess it's fair to say most of the attention is spent in media, in government circles, on kids with autism. And we're focusing more on adults with the situation today. For people who are parents of kids like Alexander, who are adults with autism, when you can no longer keep up with the demands of caring for someone who's 270 pounds, who has autism, what's out there? What can you do?
Well, during our Autism Project series, my role was to look at what happens to the teenagers as they transition into adulthood and beyond. And what we found was there was very little. And when they are no longer eligible to attend school, all of a sudden their days are empty. And there are very few programs in the community. And those that exist have long waiting lists. And so it's been described to me by parents like falling off a cliff. And for some parents who can't cope with the behaviors and the large adults in their homes who are bored, depressed, agitated, some in desperation have left their children in respite care homes, or in the case of some parents have I've heard of them being told, well, there are no residential settings, take your son to a homeless shelter.
Take your kid to a homeless shelter and leave an autistic adult in a homeless shelter. Okay, Sue Wong, let's get to you here. The Auditor General's report on autism services suggested that the Ministry of Children and Youth Services quadrupled annual autism funding in the years that the Liberals have been in power, but that's for kids. Was there a similar expansion of services and support for adults with autism?
Well, as you know, as a member of the Select Committee, we just delivered the interim report. So last week, Minister McMeekin, through his leadership,
This is Ted McMeekin, Community and Social Services Minister.
Responsible for this particular file, has made a major announcement, first of its kind, with regard to the concerns raised by both the interim report, the committee, but also he himself has traveled across the province, listening to parents who are the experts on this particular file. Because in the past, the expert came from the field, meaning the professionals, health professionals. But at the same time, the commitment by the government is the $810 million, the largest funding of its kind ever on this particular development of services. So
over what period of time?
Over 3 years, okay? So the first concern we have heard consistently travel urban, rural, across Ontario is the wait time piece, and exactly what Lori talked about in her report, but also that we heard it from the parents, from the individuals, and from the workers in the sector.
Okay. How much of that, though, goes to adults as opposed to children?
Well, the fact is that we want to completely erase the wait time, because right now there are about 8,000 young people in the special services at home. These are young people from 0 to 17. There's 9,000 just adults on wait right now.
The wait for what?
But, for the passport, okay, the passport.
And passport is what?
Passport is where the ministry funds directly to the individual as opposed to the agency, okay? So in the past, I know families who have children or adults with developmental disability that they buy the service. In the past was institutionalized care, so now we're moving from institutionalized care, agency center, now to client center, where the client direct the program and services that they see fit, okay? So we now have 9,000 people on wait for the passport. We anticipate there'll be another 4,000. So when you look at all these numbers, about 21,000 people, okay? It is a concern. The minister himself has been championing on this file, and we, each one of us, all three parties, because the Select Committee has representation from all three parties.
Lori, what's your understanding of how much of a dent that $810 million will put in the problem we're talking about tonight?
Well, it's significant. All the groups that I spoke to, community living, Autism Ontario, it's unprecedented, no question. 21,000 people on the waiting list. How often does I cover childcare as well, and nobody's saying we're going to end the waiting list for subsidized daycare. So this is significant. On the other hand, we've heard from families who've been waiting for years and are being told 2 years for that they're going to clear that waiting list for children in 2 years, and some of them have been waiting for 6 years, another 2 years, and for adults 4 years. Of that funding, I understand, and I think we're going to have to wait to see more in the budget, but I understand that some money has been earmarked to provide 1,400 residential care beds. I'm hearing that there are as many as 12,000 people waiting for residential care. So again, that's another drop in the bucket. So no question, it's being welcomed. Parents are wondering how soon they're going to get off the waiting list. They don't even know where they are on the waiting list right now. There's a lot of skepticism about the system right now because it has been changing. But there's no question that this is huge. Even in the budget leak document, I think it mentioned that they were going to be spending $350,000.
So this is well beyond.
So this is well beyond. So I was shocked when I saw it.
Let's go north. Katie, one of the few success stories that we've heard coming out of this committee of the legislature that's examining this is yours, the Billy Bayou program. What is that?
Basically, we're a day program for specifically with special needs, not necessarily just autism, but we do have a participant here that is diagnosed with autism. So basically, we're a program that runs 8:30 till 4 Monday to Friday, and this is the only program that we have in Moose Factory at this time.
Why do you think the program is working, Katie?
I believe that since our community is so small and that everyone is very close together, it's basically like a little family that we have here. We spend a lot of time one-on-one with these guys. They're basically an extension of our own family. We care a lot about them, and we do spend a lot of time with them to develop their skills further from what they already do have. And basically the staffing has been a great help for this program.
And the people that you help, how old do they tend to be? What's the age range?
Our ages range from 21 years of age up into 42 years of age.
And what kind of hope do you have for the people that you treat?
Well, basically our main goal is to try and get these guys as independent as they possibly can be for their own individual needs and things. Basically, a lot of the time is spent developing their life skills, getting them to do things that people do on a regular basis, doing dishes and laundry and hygiene and things like these, so that we can try and get them to be more independent for later on down the road when there's not a program like this available, or if family members are passed and they can't stay in our community anymore, they're going to have to move down south, basically. That's the only option that we have here for them.
Gotcha. Robert, what's Destinations?
Destinations is the program that my son attends. It's a day program for the same range of disabled adults that your guest was just talking about. And the program is from 8:30 to 4 every day, and it's a program with a range of opportunities for the clients. They try to normalize the clients in the local community without stigmatization. So they have, he goes skating and plays baseball and swimming and goes to the cottage every year. And so they have a whole range of programs for my son's purposes, because he's quite sedentary. They have a program that involves physical activity, so walking at the Magna Center and things like that. So it's a program that really is a godsend for us, but in the GTA, we understand that those kind of programs are available. It's an excellent program. It's a custodial support program primarily. It's not specifically targeted at his autism, but there's very few programs, if any, that exist of that nature anyway. So we're just very thankful to have the respite during the day.
When he comes home, is he in a better mood?
He's actually exhausted when he comes home and sometimes hungry, and so he can be quite a handful when he first walks through the door until he gets fed. He has a lot of obsessive compulsive behaviors as well, and food is one of his main OCD type of things. So he really needs to be fed and eat quickly, and he gets settled, then he's usually fine.
What would your life be like without this program?
It would be significantly more compromised if we didn't have the program. His behaviors are extremely challenging, and we provide 24/7 care for him outside of the day program. So from the time he gets up in the morning until the time he goes to sleep at night, we have to provide hand-over-hand guidance, support, prompting, and personal care. He's incontinent and so on, so he wears incontinent supplies. We have to handle all of his needs from the time he gets up till the time he goes to bed. So without that program, we would be under a significant increased amount of stress than we would be otherwise. It's a true godsend to us.
Sue, one of the things that Robert said in his, I must say, very well-written letter to the Ontario Ombudsman, who's also investigating autism support issues, he wants an increase in salary for the people who do this work. Yeah. Is that in the cards?
Yes. In this $810 million Minister McMeekin announced over 3 years, there is going to be funding earmarked to keep the support staff working in that sector, because again, the select committee heard across the province this concern about retention and training and support of these frontline staff, because we value their work. And we also want to make sure that their work are being respected, because at the end of the day, this is extremely challenging work that Robert just shared with you and us tonight. But more importantly is the fact that these are challenges. This sector has grown because the population is aging. Okay, because in the past, with especially, as you know, Steve, as a nurse, the autism file has consistently improved over the years with medical advancement. So through medical advancement, people are aging and aging well. And so now we are seeing an infusion of significant dollars province-wide to address this issue. Staffing and support of the frontline staff is part of the $810 million.
Why do you think the pay increase is such a big deal? I mean, everybody wants a pay increase. Why for these workers in particular? So important?
Because they work with the most vulnerable and at-risk sector of society that are unable to care for themselves or fend for themselves. And the quality of care that they provide is absolutely vital to these people so that they can function. And they deal with very challenging circumstances of all kinds that a parent would deal with. And they really need to have that kind of support to acknowledge the difficult work that they do. It's the kind of work that most people in society don't want to do and can't do. And one of the issues with it is that it is a predominantly female employee group. And so for my son, of course, at his age, it would be nice to also to be able to hire males who would provide that support and caregiver role and give an appropriate role model for my son in his care, and appropriate as it would be in other settings.
Laurie, when you participated in that series for the Star, were you able to get a good answer on why the system seems to be constructed in such a fashion where there are decent supports in place until you turn 18, and then, as we have heard this expression before, then it feels like you fall off a cliff? Why is it built that way?
This was something that we could never really determine. It seems that so much of life is set up for kids. School is mandatory programs, and then post-secondary, and we're just assuming that folks get out and work. And I think it could be a hangover also from our institutional days, that it used to be that people aged in institutions. And I just don't think there was any thinking. And I think it's probably one of the reasons that the government has redesigned developmental services. They've just come to that realization. And I think it's because parents have suffered in silence. And I think all of the focus on learning and childhood and those developmental pathways and the windows, that there was a real urgency to deal with the children, and sadly a sense that, well, the adults, there's no help for them.
Is it possible, Sue, to redraft the system in such a way so that after you turn 18, you don't automatically fall off the cliff, you keep some of those benefits and programs that you need until something else more specific to your adulthood is put in place? So
the announcement from the minister is very clear. We're talking also about the transition from children and youth to adulthood, also from adult to seniors, because we're now seeing the aging population, as I said earlier. So there is a commitment through the $810 million to address about 4,200 adults in terms of transition. So we also want to provide opportunity for young people, because we heard during the hearings that young people with developmental disability are interested in working, and they can work. We also heard about from the employer themselves come before the committee saying that they are hiring young people. So the focus is not just about the transition piece, but also making sure that they have opportunities. Because in the past, exactly what Laurie said in your investigation, in your reporting, that we moved from institutionalized care, now we focus on client center, which is a concept that I've used all my career as a nurse. Now we're putting that term into developmental services, which is the right thing to do, that the client and the family will have control and they manage that fund, and that they will be the center of that service delivery.
But your son, for example, I mean, Alex could not work, right?
Well, that's what I was just going to say, Steve,
Yeah.
is that my son will never work. He will never have functional employment. He will always need personalized care and support all his life from the time he goes into his senior years. And it's really a big issue because the kind of supports that he needs are not the kind of supports that are funded. And it's a very specialized, multimodal disability that he has, and it's a big challenge.
You're how old?
I'm 64.
I don't want to get too personal about this, but I know this is something that you've thought about before, so I don't think this is going to come as a great shock to you, this question. Have you thought about what's going to happen when you're not around anymore, and what happens to Alex?
Absolutely. You know, initially, as you go through your life, Steve, with a severely disabled child like Alex, your concern is the day-to-day care and the management of his services and supports, and trying to keep your own stress level and health in a good condition. And of course, when you're younger, you're more able to do that, and you have more optimism and more energy than you have as you age. As you become ill and you age in the normal processes, it really becomes a difficulty for us. That's the concern of all disabled parents, is what happens to my son after we pass away.
And what's the answer?
Well, the answer is that he's in a system that, as parents, we see as being working on a minimalist model, minimally funded, minimally supported. We have ODSP at $12,000 a year while he's living with us. It's wonderful, but when he has to go out and buy services and live, pay for all of his food, clothing, shelter, and so on a stipend that is basically 40% below the poverty line, that's a serious concern for any parent going forward. And who's going to care for him? Who's going to advocate for him? Who's going to manage his case file as he goes through his years? And who is ultimately going to care for these people as they age?
Do we have an answer for that, Lori?
I haven't seen one or heard one yet, and I think that was the most alarming discovery that our series provided, is there really isn't a comprehensive strategy, and all the experts, the people who've been studying this, from the medical experts, the psychologists, the psychiatrists, they share this anxiety going forward that we really don't have a plan. It up to this point, it's been really, you know, who's screaming the loudest, and so you throw all the money to the kids, and I think now from the select committee, certainly we're starting to hear about the other end, and you know, we've seen a very generous infusion of cash this way, but I think we're still looking for that strategy.
But I think part of the $810 million will be providing some opportunity for innovation and some community partnership addressing some of the aging issues, because it was raised in this interim report that we have heard from family members with an aging adult with development disability, and the concern about putting these individual in the long-term care facility when it's not very appropriate. Mm-hmm. So that issue was raised, and we heard across.
What does innovation look like?
Innovation in terms of partnering with the various sectors, okay? Because we know that there were a number of agencies brought forth about housing that was before the committee, very innovative. I mean, they were so creative, the suggestion to the panels, and at the same time, they also encouraging us to advocate for them in a final report. So I do believe that the minister, through his announcement, part of the $810 million, there will be opportunity for that innovation and community partnership in terms of housing
If
support.
I might say
Sure,
so,
Rob.
Steve, the concern I have, of course, is that this commitment of funding lasts until the election. And as
Which
parents,
could be in 2 months.
Which could be in 2 months. And as parents of disabled children, we become very cynical about funding announcements and money that's pledged. It's really the reality of the money that comes out at the other end, the money we actually see in the system. And it doesn't give us much confidence when we look at ODSP and the wait lists and the underfunding of the different supports that are required for disabled people when we hear these promises from the current government. So we're cynically optimistic as we go forward.
Cynically optimistic.
Exactly.
I like that. That's a new one. Let's. I want to give some props here to the Toronto Star for their autism project. You guys had some video as part of your series as well, and we want to play an excerpt from one of them. Here's 17-year-old Chris Stafford from Hamilton, and if we haven't talked about enough difficulties around this table yet today, bullying, another one. Let's roll tape, please.
there were some social difficulties, and they wanted to do a risk assessment, and they said pending the risk assessment he couldn't come to school. And when he wasn't able to go to school because the school had made the decision that he couldn't be there, there were no services to keep him at home. So at that point, the community services, the best option was a homeless shelter. It was probably one of the worst times of our lives having him in the homeless shelter, never knowing from one day to the next if he was going to be alive.
Now that's a dramatic story, admittedly. Can't be at home, can't be at school, ends up in a homeless shelter. I'm hoping that's an anomalous situation and not typical, is it?
Well, interestingly, I had started to interview Andrea and Chris the summer before our series ran in the fall of 2010. And just as we were about to go to press, I get a call from Donna Kirsch, a mother of a 22-year-old severely autistic young man, very much like your son, and she's telling she and her husband have just divorced, and this was all told to the social service agencies. They had sold the family home, and he was in a respite home, and was told that the money for the respite care was running out, and there was in fact no residential care available for him. And I said, but wait a minute, he's around the developmental stage of a 2 or 3-year-old, and what are they going to do? And she said, they have suggested that I take him to a homeless shelter. And I said, wait a minute. I was shocked. And when I started calling the agencies, again, this was 18 months ago, they were all being told, this is the austerity plan for the government, and there's no more money for residential care, and we have 4 emergencies, and doesn't he have an uncle he can stay with? And Donna was staying with friends. They just sold their home. And we wrote about it, and they did find something for him, but I was shocked. And now I think that was an extreme case, but then there was a case in Ottawa, which I think was part of the select committee, where another couple ended up leaving their child at the doors of a social service agency. There was another family in Sarnia where the couple, the aging father had been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and they couldn't handle their daughter.
Well, let's go up north. I want to find out from Katie, what are the chances of getting into a group home, or what are the options like for group homes in a place like Moose Factory, Ontario, which last I checked is north of Steeles Avenue in Toronto?
It certainly is. It's quite far ways from Steeles Avenue in Toronto. You're right. Basically, for the entire James Bay coast, which serves 5 communities in total, including Moose Factory, Moosonee, Attawapiskat, Kashechewan, and Peawanuck. Basically, there's only one group home, which has 7 spaces available, which are currently all full at the moment, and that's located in Moosonee primarily, which is, it might as well be in Toronto for these communities. I mean, the transportation and stuff up here to try and get from community to community is just ridiculous. Like, we're using helicopters right now to cross the river from between Moosonee and Moose Factory. It's just not safe for these participants. So basically, there really is no other option for them other than just the day program. There is no home in Moose Factory or any of the coastal communities. There's basically just the day program, and after that, they're on their own. They have to find either a family member to take care of them during the day, or try and get on a waiting list down south, which is at least 400 kilometers from their home. So
Katie, I want to ask you about somebody who's in your program in Moose Factory. Justin, can you tell me about Justin?
Justin is a great individual. We all really enjoy having him around. He's always happy, and he loves to dance and do dishes, clean up. One of the most helpful guys around here. Unfortunately, he has a great family support at the moment. Obviously, it's the same situation here. He stays with his mother primarily and his grandparents. his father lives down south. And so basically once he's a 28-year-old male, and once his mom gets a little bit older, they're not really sure what they're going to do with him right now. They don't have any plans. They don't really have any security, any basically self-assurance that he's going to be okay when she's gone.
Robert, I want to ask you about your son again. He lives at home with you right now. Are you trying to get him into a group home?
He's actually been on the waiting list for a group home since he left high school, which was at 21, so that's 11 years. And we did have a placement for him in 2005 in Richmond Hill, a beautiful brand new 4-bedroom home run by an organization that was supporting disabled people. Unfortunately, they had a massive bed bug infestation, and the more we read about bed bugs, the more we didn't like it, and so we removed him from the home. He's been on the wait list on an emergency basis ever since. The entire wait list in York Region is governed by used to be the CCAC, the Community Care Access Centers, and now it's, I guess, the DSOs that handle it. But it's an umbrella organization. There's virtually no information about where your child is on the list and how they get placed. It's always in crisis, so they have to be either homeless or without parents or something like that. And the whole system is such an extended problem that he'll be with us until we pass away.
I want to ask, so we've got a few minutes left here, Sue, and I want to touch on this. Autism support programs are delivered through the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Child and Youth Services, the Ministry of Community and Social Services. On the one hand, it's good that so many different levers of government are being brought to bear to solve the problem. On the other hand, it's got to be a situation where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing half the time, because that's just the way things work in life. Is this the best approach, do you think?
Well, what we heard during the hearings throughout the province was the fact that the coordination and collaboration between ministries, because these are very complex challenge cases, okay, from individuals' perspective as well as the family, as well as the agency, because at the end of the day, this is not an easy file to resolve. But at the same time, we also heard that amongst the various ministries, they are doing more collaboration, Steve, so your viewers know. I understand that at the deputy minister level, they are meeting collaboratively on a regular basis in terms of coordination and collaboration of programs and services. Because when the Minister Peruzza's ministry infuse extra money for the autism, the treatment of care recently, the IBI and the ABA program is the right thing to do. We raised the wait list for autism's piece, and now the coordination with the Ministry of Community and Social Services, Ministry of Weekend. So that coordination and collaboration among the ministry is critically important.
Let me get Lori on this. 3 different ministries.
Health needs to be there too, because the health issues are huge. Another thing we heard is that they'd be having a psychiatric issue, and that would be causing them to grow an ulcer, and that they'd go to the doctor, and the doctor would say, well, I can't treat your ulcer until you've been treated psychologically, and the mental health piece as well. So health really needs to be involved too.
A 4th ministry.
Yes.
It's more than just 4th ministry. During the hearings, we have the Ministry of Municipal Affairs were presented. The Attorney General's office were there, because we've seen cases and evidence. Some of the people who are incarcerated were with developmentally challenged. So we brought in a numerous ministry before the committee to address these issues, because we want communication, we want collaboration, we want to hear from them. What are you doing in terms of that whole continuity of care, and not to fall off the cliff, as you indicated in your report, Lori. But I think the key piece here is these are very challenges files, and it's many cases start at early years in terms of assessment and diagnosis, and we want to make sure there's a continuum and that the transition should be smooth and should be seamless.
Robert, I've got a minute left, and I want to ask you about the last line in your letter to the Ombudsman. You said to him in your submission, please be courageous in your report. How hopeful are you that he actually will be?
Well, we're always hopeful as parents of disabled children, Steve. But when you look at 8,000 people on the wait list for assessments through the DSOs, 9,000...
DSOs are?
The Developmental Services Office.
Okay.
9,000 people on the wait list for residential or supports at home, the services at home, 12,000 people on the wait list for residential services. And ODSP that funds people who are disabled at 40% under the level of the poverty line. It doesn't give us a lot of hope, and that going forward we're going to see significant changes in that process. We marginalize the people who are at the very margins of our society. And for us, Steve, it's a matter of we really ask people to live in third world poverty in a first world economy. And in terms of that, that's really unconscionable. It's almost Orwellian in the way that it's done. We keep telling people that they're being well served and well supported, but we really underfund them with a minimalist model. That needs to change. So I certainly hope the Ombudsman is going to come out with some courageous recommendations around the whole system.
We want to thank everybody for participating in our program tonight here at TVO. Katie Little, it's good of you to join us via Skype from Moose Factory. Good luck, continued good luck with the Billy Bayou program. Sue Wong, the Liberal member of the Ontario Legislature from Scarborough Agincourt, Laurie Montsebraten from the Toronto Star, Robert Belita, whose son Alexander is 32, and we obviously wish you continued good luck with his efforts as well.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.